Yeah, well, welcome. This is Type 1 in Midlife, and we get in here every Monday at 1 p.m. And today we are welcoming Jaime Lucove. So, Jamie, I've been talking about you in and out of my group and with these ladies over the last few months. So I'm happy you're able to take the time to join us today and talk about
Yeah.
things that are true to you. So, Carrie and Tara are here. They are members of the group, and like I said, there was many that said that they wanted to join us today. So chances are they'll pop in a little bit later. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to prompt a little bit of engagement. But until we have some others that come in here today, I'm going to hand it over to you, Jamie, and
Yeah.
introduce yourself. And Carrie and Tara, if you want to just pop in the chat where you're from and how long you've been living with diabetes. I know you've said this a lot amongst us, but to help Jamie out as well. And I know, Jamie, you want to share some screens today, and you
I
should have
do.
access to that. Do you see that you have access
Yep.
to that? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, and in the process, we'll kind of learn a little bit about each other as well.
Okay. Sounds good. I
Perfect.
shared. Is this sharing my monitor one? Do you see my slides?
Yeah, I think we
Mhm.
do. Yes, we do. Hmm.
Okay. It's funny because it doesn't look like I'm sharing them. Okay. That's like me and my family pictures.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
So yeah, I'm really happy to join. Diabetes is just a part of my family, my life. My aunt was diagnosed as an adult in her 40s in 1980. I was diagnosed in 1983 at 3 years old. And then my son was diagnosed with early screening in stage two last year. He received Tzield. And since then, he has started taking insulin. So he's taking very little insulin, but we're doing diabetes together. And I'm really happy to join today. I noticed a lot of blood sugar changes with myself in perimenopause, and I was like, what is going on here? And there's no information out there about it, really. I found Melissa's podcast. I started doing a lot of my own research, and it's become an interest area for me. I'm trained as an epidemiologist. I've worked as an epidemiologist for 20 years, but I never worked in type 1 diabetes. And when my son was diagnosed last year, I transitioned to work in type 1 diabetes. So I lead real world evidence at T1D Exchange, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'll go ahead and start with my experience with Chasteberry tree because I think we've talked about that, Melissa, um,
Hmm.
and would like to share my experiences there. So as a researcher, I put effort into like figuring out why is Chasteberry tree working and what's going on, and so there's a little bit about that in here too. Um, but What I noticed in this was a presentation I created for something else. I'm just reusing it here. But what I noticed about um, knowledge is people don't seem to think about insulin resistance with type 1 diabetes, but insulin resistance is the times when we're stressed or when we gain weight and we need more insulin. The reason for that is insulin resistance. We're becoming resistant to insulin in some way, so we need more of it. Um, and we also have, this is a new thing that everyone's known for a long time, but I didn't realize it until recently. People who don't have diabetes, their insulin is absorbed through hepatic glucose absorption. It's near the liver, and ours is absorbed in our peripheral tissues. So we have to use more insulin than most people do who don't have type 1 diabetes. It's just a reality. So using that insulin in that way encourages insulin resistance. So it's something that we all deal with, even if we know it or not. There aren't any meds approved to treat insulin resistance in type 1. Um, there, we also know that teen years and menopause are time points where A1Cs are higher among people with type 1 diabetes. They fluctuate up among women. But we don't know much more beyond that about why it happens or what we can do to fix it officially. And then this question of like, why do we care? We can just take more insulin. Well, it's very complicated. And especially in menopause, there's all these fluctuations and everything. So I feel like there's this need to understand what we can do about this more, right? So my recent health events were around when I was 42. I'm 45 now. I noticed just taking more and more insulin overall, but also the fluctuations right before my cycle started, needing more insulin, and then immediately after the cycle started, needing less insulin. That was like my observation. And then I found Melissa. I joined this online Facebook group, which you may be in, perimenopause and menopause and type 1 diabetes, read about all the other experiences going on there. I also started metformin. It really helped my evening blood sugar spikes. So metformin works primarily by reducing hepatic glucose production. So your glucagon response. And people with type 1 diabetes have an increased glucagon response after meals compared to people who don't have type 1 diabetes and compared to the general population. So that's what I noticed mostly with metformin is my post-meal spikes improved across the board, but I was having the worst trouble with it overnight. And then I was just like, still not, I mean, it helped, but I was still just struggling. So I'm not much of a naturopath actually, but I went ahead and visited a naturopath who recommended using chasteberry tree. In the rest of the slides, it's just referred to as herb, but that's chasteberry tree. I removed the name for another presentation I was giving. And it was like, bam, immediate impact. My high excursions, like times where you just get high and you're stuck high and you doesn't matter what you're doing, there's just like immediately improved. And I had lows immediately. Like the first night I took it, I had 3 overnight lows, which is very unusual for me. And then the whole next day, I was just catching lows with snacks. Like, I mean, it was a stronger effect than I found with metformin. Drastic. And so I'm going along, like I adjust all my own insulin doses and I loop. And so I get all my data in Night Scout. I can analyze by day exactly what's happening with my blood sugars and my data. So I treated myself, well, actually, about 3 weeks after I started it, I got an Apple Health alert. Your average blood sugar has declined. And I was like, wow, that's a little, the only other time I got an Apple Health alert about my blood sugar was when I had COVID. So that was interesting. And then a week after that, I got an alert, your average insulin use has dropped. And I was like, wow. I mean, so then I decided to go into the data and see exactly what was going on. So I did a study of myself. And it's called a pre-post study. So I used the 4 weeks before I took the herb and I compared them to the 4 weeks after I took the herb, right? So for the median blood sugar, before the herb was 116, after the herb was 111. So it went down by about 4.3%. And then this is the average blood sugar, about 4.8%. The estimated A1C, this is estimated from the CGM data. It's not my actual A1C. My actual A1C is usually a few points above that, actually, but that dropped a tiny bit. But you can see my blood sugars stay pretty low, like pretty well managed anyway. So you don't see huge changes here, but these are the big changes. They're the reductions and the significant highs. So if you look at what I saw with blood sugar above 200, 6% of the time I was in that range. Before the herb, 2.3%. So that's a 63% reduction. They're pretty significant. The same for greater than or equal to 80. And then if you look at the lows, those went down too. And I think that's mostly because, you know, when you go high, you have to take the insulin. Sometimes you take too much, it causes a low, right? So the lows actually went down a lot too. So you might look at this and say, oh, well, you just took more insulin. It must have, you know, you were taking more insulin. That's why your blood sugars went down. No, it was taking 13% less insulin in the week. So that, well, I mean, this is a one person study. There's a ton of factors that maybe influencing it, but I don't feel like I changed my diet or I was actually probably eating more in the after period because I was catching lows while I was trying to sort out my insulin doses to be lower, right? So yeah, I would say I lowered almost all of my settings, basal, ISF, insulin to carb ratio by like at least 10% over that time period to try to fix the lows I was having and eventually be happier. Now this has stayed pretty consistent. I just looked the other day at my average insulin use. It's about 32, maybe slightly less than that. I've lost a little weight in the past month, so it's gone down a little bit more. But that's about has stayed. Now the interesting thing, the herbalist said, was not surprised at all. I went back, he's like, well, yes, that's what I thought would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he said, and at first he had said, try to take 2 of them starting on day, I forget if he said start on day 1 or day 14. It was some day of the cycle. It was either 1 or 14. You were supposed to take
Okay.
2 days. You were supposed to take 1. And I tried that and I actually had like breast tenderness, extreme breast tenderness, even like swelling in my breasts. And I was tired. Now those symptoms are similar to having too much estrogen.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to not, I just tried that for a few days and the effects happened very quickly. So I just went right back to taking 1 all of the time. So yeah, that's the chasteberry herb. Now, I also looked up like, why might this be happening? What are the mechanisms? And I haven't cited the studies here, but there were a lot of studies I looked through. And it's basically known to influence, this herb is known to influence multiple male and female hormone levels like androgens, estrogen, progesterone. It affects all of them. It's been shown in self-reported studies to reduce premenstrual syndrome symptoms. So women self-report their symptoms, and they studied them before and after taking the herb, and it was shown to reduce the symptoms of premenstrual syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting one is this one. So PCOS is a disorder that women with type 1 can have, but women without type 1 can have it too. And it's characterized by insulin resistance. And there's a lot of symptoms associated with it, including hair growth on the face, other things as well. And there was a study that showed that it reduced those symptoms of PCOS. It didn't actually measure the hormone levels, but it had women self-report their symptoms. And then they put rats, they gave rats this herb and they put them on a very specific diet as well. So it was both a diet and the herb, and it lowered both blood sugar and insulin production in rats in that study.
Okay.
And then it's also been shown to release pituitary hormones that are associated with insulin resistance. So if you think about it, it's basically, we know that it has an impact on multiple hormones and androgens. It's been observed in rats and humans. I even found some horse studies as well that had looked at this herb. And then and they seem to show some sort of relationship between the herb and insulin resistance. There's other mechanisms that may not be female hormone mediated, like impacting cortisol and dopamine, but cortisol and dopamine also influence blood sugars too. So anyway, that's it about the herb.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jamie. Yeah, this is amazing. And before we popped on today, because I've been looking at this myself, and again, this is something that we really got to mention too, because some of the ladies here are, well, it's actually a mixed group as far as premenopause and postmenopause. And as we
Okay.
know, this herb is great if we're not on estrogen, because it can be counterintuitive for those of us that are already on hormone replacement. And the
Mm-hmm.
ladies do know that because I've talked about this herb. I know Jen is here. Jen, I'm not sure what stage of what sort of hormonal stage you are. You're welcome to share that here in the chat and just let us know. And I know Tara is on some hormone replacement, as Carolyn is too. But it's so interesting because it just goes to show you how impactful all the hormones in the system work with or against each other. So it's just such an exciting thing to learn. And you're a perfect example of somebody who's using it because you're not on hormone replacement as of now. And just to see,
So update on that. So
oh,
update on
okay, okay, tell us. Update.
when I read these slides, I wasn't taking any, and I stayed
Okay.
on this herb for maybe a year and a half without taking anything. And then I decided to add, so I have an IUD, Mirena, so that's my internal progesterone. So I don't take any supplemental progesterone other than that. But I added the smallest dose estrogen patch. Actually, my main rationale for adding the estrogen patch was bone health protection, and it has some research indicating it can lower LDL cholesterol, and mine is high. So I went on it, and my insulin doses dropped a tiny bit. I had lows, mild though, not as strong as when I started the herb, but I did lower my insulin doses, and I noticed it particularly lowered my insulin doses overnight. But I also feel like it's easier to see the overnight blood sugars because food isn't mixed in there, but
Okay.
um and but I don't know, I haven't noticed any problem with it, but
Okay, okay. So
other
this is
than
and it is one of those ones that they just let us know about, and pointings, just to kind of tap onto your point. It's just one of those things they have to mention, you
you
know.
do have to mention it. I mean,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
definitely
like,
awareness, FYI.
yeah, I
But
mean,
the
it hasn't
fact
been
that,
studied.
yeah,
So, you don't, and I'm an epidemiologist, and so I'm the first person to tell you, like, this is just one person, and
right,
I have no idea.
right,
I've tried to see if we could somehow study this, but
yeah.
I don't really have too much time. I have a full-time job, and I haven't made much progress figuring out how to study this, but I feel like it's pretty impactful. Um, yeah. I
Well,
wish,
yeah, and we're definitely going to start to talk about the research that you're working on. But if before we
yeah.
move on, does anybody have any questions, curiosity, or comments about chasteberry, this herb? Feel free to unmute and ask away. Yeah, yeah, we're here for you.
Well, I don't have anything really about Chasteberry, but and I'm sorry I came on late. You may have already talked about this, but when you were on metformin,
Yeah.
um, did it seem like the Chasteberry worked better than metformin?
So what I noticed with metformin
Hmm.
was I was really complaining about my post-meal numbers, and especially my dinner blood sugars. I
Hmm.
would go high after dinner. I'm a low carb eater, so I don't usually have more than 30 carbs, 20 carbs at dinner.
Okay.
I'd go up to the 200s, and I'd hover there and slamming insulin, like two more units, two more units, two more. I mean, it was just really strange. I do have gastroparesis as well, a mild form of gastroparesis, so could have been that affecting it, but the main issue I was trying to fix was like the post-meal highs,
Mhm.
because it was like for the same meal at another point of the day, I would need like a quarter of the insulin. You know what I mean? And so metformin lowered the post-meal highs. So I used a little less insulin because I wasn't using all those corrections, or I didn't need as much bolus insulin with dinner. And the effect was very fast. Like, bam. This day I started taking metformin, my post-meal numbers were significantly improved. I didn't notice it affecting my basal. Like, it was just the post-meal highs.
Okay.
Chase affected everything, and it seemed to lower the those fluctuations before and after the cycle, like the super highs before the cycle and the major lows during the cycle. Whereas metformin just sort of fixed the post-meal blood sugars. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So definitely two different distinct effects. Yeah.
That's
okay.
what I noticed. Yeah.
Good to know. Yeah.
Okay. Now, by the way, any of those slides about Chasteberry tree, you can keep them in this group, but I do not want them shared with anyone outside of this group. I still have a little business idea in my mind that that I may explore studying this herb and maybe marketing this herb. I have no idea, but it could be 10 years from now, but I'm sharing it with you because I care about people and I care about people with type 1, but it's for your information only. The rest of it, the next few slides are, I work with T1 at T1D Exchange. I started that job in January of this year. And so I'd like to share a little bit about what we do. And we have a few studies focused on menopause and perimenopause that I wanted to just share with the group so you know what's going on there. T1D Exchange facilitates research. We use different data sources to analyze. RWD stands for real world data. We also have initiatives to drive quality improvement with a particular focus on equitable care for people living with type 1 diabetes. We have a few different initiatives along the bottom. The one I'm going to talk about today is the T1D Exchange Registry. I have a little overview on the next slide. We also have a quality improvement collaborative, which is a network of about 60 endocrinology clinics that we collaborate with to make improvements in quality of care. We do custom research for the pharmaceutical industry, the med tech industry, other nonprofits, academics. And then we also have an online community. Those people are not involved in research necessarily, but it's just a community that you can follow to learn more about research that's going on in type 1 diabetes. And then we also do recruitment for studies that we don't do ourselves, but like we helped recruit for the Vitex clinical trial and other types of research studies that other people are conducting. We just help with recruitment. So a little bit about the T1D Exchange Registry, which you can join if you're not part of it already. It has about 22,000 participants who are involved, and it's both adults and caregivers of children with type 1 diabetes. When you join the registry, you also have the option of sharing your CGM data to be used in research projects if you want to, but it's not required. And this registry was started in 2019, and it's been ongoing since then. We send yearly questionnaires after you're enrolled to collect sort of similar information year over year so we can do trending of what's happening in the population. And then we also have these sub-studies that we do, and one of them was in perimenopause, so I'll talk about in menopause. I'll talk about that in a second. And then when you join, you share different information in the surveys, information about your diabetes or demographics, socioeconomic status, different health outcomes that are relevant to diabetes. And then the team that works on the registry. So I'm one of the researchers, and we have a few other researchers who have done type 1 diabetes research for quite a while. Two of us live with type 1 diabetes as well. I'll skip over. This is just a few metrics. So since we started, we've done 56 studies, and 13 of those were executed in 2025. You can see here some of our published manuscripts, and we're presenting at almost every ADA meeting and the international meetings as well. So, okay. So what have we done in perimenopause and menopause? So last year we did a survey study, which was focused on the experiences of women in perimenopause and menopause. It was just those categories. And it was especially also focused on medications taken, their experience with healthcare providers. Do you feel like your healthcare provider is supportive and helpful, and you're sort of trying to understand, are people getting the support they need from their healthcare providers around this topic? And then we did ask some questions about blood sugar fluctuations, but we didn't look in detail at insulin use or blood sugar trends or anything like that. So that study was recruited and completed their recruitment last year, and the analysis and writing is still in progress. So we haven't published anything on that yet, but hope to pretty soon. And happy to share that when the full analysis is done and we're published. This was started before I joined T1D Exchange, so it wasn't my study in particular. The next two are studies I'm working on. And this is the one I called Melissa to tell her the preliminary news about this one. But so the idea with this one is to look at CGM data, comparing blood sugar differences in the perimenopause years, not menopause and postmenopause, but specifically the perimenopause years, and comparing them to the periods just before perimenopause to see the difference. Now, you might say, everyone on this call knows there's differences. Why are we doing this study? There's little to nothing published about the differences in blood sugars. So when the doctors are confused and don't know what we're talking about, it's not surprising that they're confused. There's literally nothing out there about this problem. So this is a very simple study, but if we publish it, it's actual evidence that there are differences, that it's worth paying attention to, that it's worth funding with grant funding, that it's worth evaluating and seeing how we can help women more, right? So we did this with already collected data. Remember, we have those annual surveys. So we already had the CGM data. We know what age women are, so we could classify them into the perimenopause group and the premenopause group. And we ran the preliminary differences and we did not find anything. Now, there's standard metrics that are often looked at in CGM studies, and those are the ones we looked at: time in range, time below range, time above range, and different metrics with criteria like 70 versus 55 and 180 and 250. And okay. So I was seriously bummed on Friday when the data came in. And I thought about it, and I'm interested in any feedback if people have feedback about this on the call. But I thought back about my experiences, and I do think I had more high blood sugars in perimenopause. So I was confused we didn't find more of that. But then I thought about it, well, if I'm having highs in one period of time and I'm having lows in another period of time, maybe the averages across the whole time period just sort of look similar, right? So we're going to be looking at another metric, which is a day-by-day metric and by the way, that we looked at 180 days of data. So we had a multiple cycles in there, should have been. And so we're going to look at sort of what proportion of days do you have a super high day or a super low day, and we're going to try to compare it that way. It's a slightly different metric. I feel like it's possible it might capture these differences, but anyway, that's the latest update on that currently frustrating study. Any questions or comments on it?
Well, I can definitely understand what you're saying, because the transition for me just over the last several years, my A1C and my blood sugar numbers were very well controlled, even though I was having so many symptoms in perimenopause. And then something finally gave out, and I spent a year just feeling like I was a brand new diagnosed diabetic. Well, I've had since I was a child. So it was really, really bizarre for me to spend my entire life almost knowing how to take care of myself, and now nothing worked. And so I went years of having perimenopausal symptoms, but my blood sugars weren't affected.
Okay.
Something happened in my early 40s. So in my mid 30s, I started to have perimenopausal symptoms.
Like what types of symptoms in the 30s?
Like I was always having like hot and cold body temperature
You
fluctuations.
were, okay.
Yep, I would go through bouts of fatigue. I started with the joint pain. It would kind of come and go.
Yeah.
Hair loss had started. I didn't know that that's what it was. So I never had it looked into.
Yeah.
But I also had 4 children and life was really, really stressful with other circumstances. So I just thought it was all to do with that. I would just tell myself,
Mhm.
well, it's just high stress. And then I would kind of come out of it. Now
Right.
looking back, now that it's almost been 10 years, I can see this pattern.
Hmm.
Um, and basically in my early 40s that my body just finally fell off the cliff, but that was also because of the drop in hormones. So only by
Yeah.
learning about the hormones did I piece it together and I can look back. But what's so interesting is that my blood sugars were maintained with the same amount of
Mm.
insulin for many, many years until that drop, severe drop of hormones. That's when they
Yeah.
became unmanageable. And now it's been, about a year and a half. And I don't like where they're at, but I can maintain where I'm at, but it's certainly not where I want to be. But it's just the
Yeah.
constant change as you know,
Yeah.
of hormones. So it's just very interesting. And that's just my story of I didn't notice any blood sugar changes, but it was all of these other physical changes that were already taking
Mm.
place. So
Interesting.
it's all just, yeah, and it's all crazy because it really doesn't make any sense, right? So, and
Right.
Mhm.
now with the blood sugars and the hormones, it's still changing. It's like every
Right.
other month, there's something new, and I'm in the midst of new changes right now, and I don't know what it is. I just, it's just like, okay, now I just have to adapt and deal. So,
Right. I know. It's so tricky. I mean, I've worked full time my whole life and since I started working, and I think when I hit like 42 is the first time I started taking time off work from diabetes. Like,
oh
I'm
wow.
so exhausted. I had so many lows overnight. I cannot work this morning, right?
Mhm.
I my whole life, I never had that. Even
Yeah.
if I had a bad low, I could bounce back, but it somehow affects you more, and it happens more often. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. 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 The word magnify just comes into our language now, doesn't it? Everything, it's again our recovery time, how,
Yes.
and not just physically, but emotionally, how we can bounce back or not bounce back. I think that's really where it feels so much different. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And it's one day so different from the next. It's
Hmm.
so,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I've wondered how people work full time and deal with diabetes. I've been home. I've been able to stay with my kids and raise them, and I still have teenagers in the house and basically in homeschool. So basically, I just can stop anytime I need to stop. But
Yeah.
I have wondered so much the last few years how anyone can go work full time because the quick blood sugar drops, which I never experienced before out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it takes hours to come out of it. Like, I don't know how people do it,
Yeah.
but and that's new for me too. I don't know for anyone listening.
Hmm.
It could take 2 hours for a blood sugar to finally come up
Yeah.
and you've done everything
I
you
know.
need to do. And then your brain
Yeah.
fogs for hours, if not the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So
I
I think
know.
I'm
Yeah.
ass- I'm assuming that's a perimenopausal
Hmm.
symptom for us with T1D because if I had a low blood sugar before, and obviously I've had many, I could take whatever amount of carbohydrate I needed. It would come up within 30 minutes, give me another 30 minutes, and mentally I could keep going. But
Yeah.
now it's completely different. So I'm always interested in finding out if that's the same for others. Does it take hours or days to
Mm.
come out of that fog?
Hmm.
Not days, sorry, but
Yeah.
hours to like a full day.
Yeah.
I do feel like the recovery is harder for me. Um, and it's also been like an emotional process about being okay with taking that time for myself because I'm a very high achieving, like I push and push and push at work.
Hmm.
And I've led large teams. Uh, I'm about to become the PI of that registry, the T1D exchange registry. That's like a really big deal. I'm presenting at international meetings. And I don't like to stop at all. And I love it. It's like a big part of my identity. But when I reached perimenopause, it was like an identity problem. Like, oh my God, I can't be a powerhouse.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
And it's okay for me to take, but like someone has a migraine, you wouldn't expect them to work during their migraine.
Mhm.
So now I'm like, I need my hour. It's like I'm having a migraine, and I take it. But for a while, like for years, it felt like I was failing, which was not fair to myself to feel that way, but I did feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that
Plus,
all
like, why
makes
can't I
sense.
figure it out? Why can't I fix it? But
Mhm.
not fixable.
Yeah, yeah. And these are all things that are hard to measure.
Very hard to measure.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
to express or to explain to the doctor when when they truly are trying to help us, but they don't understand it because it's hard to, again, it's hard to measure.
Right.
It doesn't show up on our CGM or our
No,
our pump reports, does it?
no, it doesn't. I mean, my time in range, every time I go in, he's like, you're doing great. What's the problem? I'm like, no, give me metformin. Give me something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, let me take a minute and explain this next one because this grant is like, oh my gosh. So it's not funded yet. So it's only been submitted. We hear back just the letter. So there's stages of grant. You usually submit a letter of intent. That's like, this is what we propose to do. It's very short, 2 to 3 pages to the grant funder. And then they review it and they check whether it aligns with the goals of the grant. If it does, they'll sign off and say you can submit a full application. Then you submit a usually 10-page long, and that can be up to 30 references of the grant in detail, your full research plan, all the particulars about how you're going to study it, a full literature review of everything that's supporting the need for that research, right? So we submitted a very large grant to PCORI. We're a co-investigator. We're not the main investigator. So a researcher at an academic institution is the primary investigator, who's a endocrinologist, an adult endocrinologist. And the goal of the grant is the primary aim is to evaluate the impact of hormone replacement therapy on blood sugar management and insulin use in type 1 diabetes. We'll have a huge national database of information about hormone replacement therapy use, what doses women are on, how long they've been on it. That will be linked to another large database of data with A1C metrics. So that's the goal of that. Now, I don't know if you went over this at all in the group, but in type 2 diabetes, hormone replacement therapy lowers A1C by an average of 0.5%. So that's pretty significant. Even an A1C reduction of 0.3% is considered clinically meaningful in a population study. So 0.5% is actually a very meaningful reduction in A1C at a population level. So there's the thing with this grant, we had to submit a whole bunch of background on type 2 diabetes and just say there is no data in type 1. So we need to do the study, right? So we're going to use that large database to look at the impact of hormone replacement therapy. Then in our registry, we'll be doing 2 types of studies. One are like interviews where we would love to interview, if this gets funded, we'll share the study with you guys. Interviews of women and what their experiences are so that we can get the lived experience information. And there are standard methods like, detailed methods about how to do that type of interview research by identifying themes and things like that. And then we'll do a survey study, which will hopefully go out to about 4,000 women, and they'll report their symptoms. They'll share their CGM data and their insulin data, hopefully directly from the pump, so that we can evaluate longitudinally and cycle data over about 3 to 4 cycles for people who are still cycling so that we can look at all of those relationships between what's happening to the blood sugars, the insulin use, how is it related to the cycle in these time periods, and other things like that. So those are, is it affecting symptoms? What are women's symptoms like with type 1 diabetes? It's a big grant, and you just got to cross your fingers because it's funded by PCORI, Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute.
Okay.
So
I do
only
have a question.
about 10% of those grants get funded. So
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were still talking to interrupt. Do you know why surveys and the grant money, all of that stuff goes to type 2 diabetes? Is there a reason why type 1 is not studied?
well, it's much more rare.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
That's
Yeah.
interesting to me because I feel like it's not.
oh, it definitely is.
Because
Yeah,
I've
no,
lived with it.
Yeah.
one third of people over the age of 40 have type 2 diabetes.
Which is
Crazy.
incredible. Yeah, that's incredible.
I mean, it's, yeah, and we know so many people like that, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's the main
yeah.
reason, is that it's more common.
It's a larger population. Yeah.
You know, Breakthrough T1D funds a lot of research in type 1 diabetes.
mhm.
They do not fund, it is not part of their research agenda in any capacity to fund women's health research. You can go right on their web. I mean, we get grant funding from Breakthrough T1D, not on women's health, but on other areas. I think they would be interested in receiving a letter from your group, actually,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
about
Yeah.
the challenges you experience and that you're disappointed
Mhm.
that it is not a funding priority of Breakthrough
Mhm.
T1D.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I happen to know the emails of who would need to receive that
Okay.
email.
Definitely.
Not that
should.
I would, not that you got the email from me, but yeah.
It always helps to get it in the right inbox, right? Yeah, yeah. I
But
would.
they've made their research priorities very focused on cure and this new types of immunotherapies to delay diabetes, and that's where the vast majority of their funding is going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned research, like the focus areas that you're looking at. What about for ladies or people in general? I mean, well, in this case, because obviously we're looking at hormonal impact. What about those that are doing multiple daily injections? I know some of our group members are still on, it's a little harder, I guess, as far as studying the, you know,
Really hard to study because
yeah, because of the lack of
you
reporting.
have to self-report. You could
Yeah,
use an InPen maybe
in
and
pen.
share the data through an InPen, but very few people use an InPen. If we look in our sample, and for whatever reason, our sample, well, it's common, any registry like this where we don't pay very much. It's like $25 to answer the surveys, right? And people who have time and aren't working two jobs, and like it ends up being a more educated, more socioeconomically enhanced group of people who, and healthier people who are very sick, don't take the time to do these other studies because they're really sick already, right? So
Understood.
our sample is biased, and we know it's biased. And every study like this is biased. We do everything we can to try to improve that and make it representative. But so it's something like 85% of our sample, no, maybe 70% of our sample is using a pump, and 90% of the sample is using a pump. Almost more than 80% are using automated pumps.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You
Well, what do
mentioned.
do you mean automated, like the newer ones that are supposed to be using all the technology and you're not making the decision? Is that what you mean?
So you always make a decision. Almost every approved pump, you still input your carbs, but they're automatically adjusting your insulin doses based on your blood sugar. So Control IQ, is the tech within Tandem. The Omnipod 5 algorithm is an
Mhm.
That
automated.
one I know. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
And
spent 25 years on a pump and
Yeah.
then switched back to injections because here's the other thing that people don't talk about, even with moving the pump around, because you always have to, if the scar tissue, after so many years, the scar
Mhm.
tissue builds up no matter what.
I
And that's
know.
something I'm realizing talking to other people, they don't understand. And I didn't know that either. It was never taught. So now I'm
Yeah.
back on injections just to find any spots on my body that aren't affected. And it's working just fine. But
Yeah, that's good.
so I don't know a lot of the new pumps because I realize, yeah, I need to give my body a rest for several years
Oh, it's
before
a good idea. And
maybe going back on another pump. But it did work. It was great for the years I wore it.
there's
Yeah.
a study recruiting right now, I think out of Stanford. It's just ending its recruitment, though. I don't know if it ended, but it's looking at these skin issues with pumps.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I've seen a tiny bit of research going into that.
Mhm.
And I know it's a real issue.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another layer to consider, isn't it? Is just the effectiveness and the absorption. And I know one of the things that you and I had a chance to talk about on Saturday, Jamie, is the timing of the data and how it kind of bumps up with the cycle timing. And also actually, I forgot what the other part was. I know that was one thing we talked about. I'm trying to think of the other thing that, that other variable that could play into why, um,
Well, you were saying you
the
think
reporting.
you were saying think a lot of the women are experiencing symptoms in their 30s,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is, I mean, in this study, the one that we had the sad data from on Friday,
Mhm. Mhm.
the we just had age. We don't know whether they're in perimenopause or not. We could just use age to do that one. So we had to, um, so there could be what's called misclassification, where there are some people we put in that lower age group, which we're calling normal menstruation, but they
Mhm.
may not be normally menstruating.
Mhm.
They may be already in perimenopause. So,
Or
yeah.
the fact that the reporting was showing that, because it's really just looking at in range, so time in range, but whether or not it was taking more insulin to
Yeah,
to
don't know.
keep time in range, because we all know, because we're more close to really the data, and maybe some women aren't as close to the data, not realizing that it's taking, and I'll just throw numbers out there, that it's taking 40 units a day to stay in range, where, well, a year or so ago, before the hormones started to fluctuate, it was only taking them 28 units a day.
Yeah,
Even though they're still in range, their A1C is still okay. It's still within the guidelines that their doctor and them are shooting for. That's really what we want to know.
yeah,
Because time and range is time and range, but if it's taking a whole lot more effort, and I think maybe, and somebody like Carolyn and Tara who had to hop out, who are on injections, I think we definitely, because I was MDI for the years. I was in all this fluctuation as well. When you need more basal insulin because you're dialing it up. So it's a lot
right,
easier to track. It's very evident, for that, as far as that measuring tool.
right.
Yeah, and that's hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that
And in it's hard to we don't want to exclude people who use MDI from being involved in our studies, but and most of our studies include them, but some of them you end up having what's called measurement error. There's just no way around it. Like if you self-report your basal and bolus dose, it has measurement error. If you take it from the pump, it has zero measurement error. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's tricky. And our sample just has so few people in that group for whatever reason.
Understood.
But also some of the findings you would have from the people using the pump are probably applicable to the people using MDI, right? In terms of like, these are the trends we're observing in insulin use, and these are the trends we're observing in fluctuations across the cycle or something like that. So at least, but we're ahead of ourselves because that grant has to get funded first.
Those real life, absolutely. Yes, yes. And you mentioned it as well, just how it impacts life and work life and relationships and stress and sleep, all those things that we talk about here inside the group that is not necessarily things that they're researching or asking or, so
yeah. And we will ask about all of those symptoms and self-reported data. So it'll be amazing to be able to get that out there. If that grant isn't funded, I think we will do another sub-study looking at some of these things. We just can't quite do as much if we don't get the funding. So there'll be something in the future.
Yeah. Give it time for sure. Yeah. We appreciate you. Yeah, absolutely. And just having the eyes and the real life experience included in all of this, it's real important. And we appreciate your time today too. Carrie and Caroline, do you have any lasting comments or questions or anything that you want to take away from our time here with Jaime?
I had just a couple of questions.
Sure.
You mentioned you took metformin, but I thought only type 2s do that.
Yeah, so it's indicated only for type 2 diabetes. So it hasn't been studied in a randomized clinical trial in type 1 diabetes. It has been studied in some other studies of people in type 1 diabetes, but not necessarily a randomized clinical trial. So it's off-label use. Metformin is so cheap that you don't even need to use your insurance to buy it. It's like $5 a bottle. So in terms, like, I had thought about GLP-1s, but all the hoops you have to go through for that. And plus I have gastroparesis, so I probably shouldn't be on a GLP-1 anyway, because they affect your stomach so much. But metformin was like snapping your fingers. Doctor wrote the prescription, you get it. If you like it and it helps you, great. And that's the other thing about metformin. And my doctor said, I don't think it's going to help you very much. Okay, well, you don't know until you try it. So he said, well, you can try it, So metformin, the main way it works is it lowers the production of glucagon, the release of sugar from your liver, basically.
Right.
And people with type 1 diabetes, we still make sugar in our liver, but it's called dysregulated. It doesn't do it at the right time. It's confused how it does it. So we still make it. And we actually tend, by the way, your doctor may not even know this. I'm just telling you so you know, but they don't pay any attention to this. But people with type 1 diabetes make more glucagon, more sugar from their body after a meal than people without type 1 diabetes. It's well known, but doctors, anyway. So that's why I think metformin helped me, because I was struggling most with the post-meal numbers, and it lowered that. Some people take it and they don't find it helps you. The other thing about metformin is it has digestive side effects, which a lot of people experience, but I didn't experience them. So I actually debated starting that medication for almost a year, like reading reviews. I am so mad at myself that I waited that long. Like, try it. If you have a side effect, you just stop it. And if it doesn't work for you, just stop it.
Right. You don't know till you try. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
My other question.
There's a long-acting version. So there's 2 long-acting versions. One is XR and one is ER, and they work slightly differently in how they release in the stomach. So I find the it's called like osmotic release.
Okay.
I can send the name to Melissa afterwards so you know
Okay,
exactly
sure,
what, but
sure,
that
yeah.
one works for me the best.
Okay.
Yeah. But the short acting ones are more likely to cause digestive side effects than the long acting ones.
Right. Extended release, and then yeah. I think the extended release tends to be more commonly used for sure, just because of that. Okay. And Carrie, did you have anything else that you wanted to?
Oh, yeah, my last question was,
Mhm.
you were diagnosed in what year, Jamie?
1983.
83. So you had, so when you were diagnosed, I was diagnosed, I'm in 81, we didn't have meters back then.
Yeah.
So you had meters to check your blood
No.
sugar. Okay, I didn't know. Okay, yeah,
For
that's
about, for my mom didn't remember how long. She knew we didn't have one for maybe like the first year, maybe 2 years. She doesn't remember exactly. And then we got a meter that took about 2 minutes long.
yeah, I remember that. I was in the 11th grade when that. Yeah, okay. I was
Yeah,
just
remember
curious
that.
about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we had so we did urine testing with the.
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that? Yeah.
Yeah,
Back in the day. Yeah, we're all in that same area of
yeah.
lack of information. Okay. Well, thank you. This was great.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to think about and mull over and continue to ask questions and to seek answers for. So yeah, again, we thank your time. Thank you for your time and being here.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm going to have all this in the email. I'm going to have a follow-up email for those that could not make it today. So definitely, if you're watching this recording, then you are getting all the data in your inbox as well. So again, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. And we will,
Bye-bye.
yes, and we'll all be in touch inside our group. And you all
Sounds good.
Okay.
Nice to meet you
All
guys.
right.
Yeah.
Thanks, ladies. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah. Bye-bye.